So this is just a tutorial on the basics of solid and surface modeling. Most of the things we covered in class today, I am just going to run through all of them very quickly. Like a summary of what we did. So okay, I'm just going to open a new Rhino file. So new, let's just say, I'm just going to close that. Okay, so perspective. So again, you've got surface modeling and solid modeling, and you can create surfaces using 3 or 4 points, using 2 points, and using 3 points. So again, if you want to create a surface from 4 points, you can pretty much just assign the points at any location on your plane. I'm just going to turn that to a shaded view so that we can see what the surface looks like. And there you go. And a plane, that's a surface with 2 points, would essentially look like that. And we discussed being able to control the surface using the points, and to do that you have to turn your points on. So you can select that, you can click that icon, or you can just type points on to do that. So right now your surface has 4 points, and if you wanted to have more control to that surface, or for that surface rather, I'm just going to copy that, holding down holding down Alt and using my left mouse button, dragging that. You can actually just rebuild the surface to create more control points. So yeah, when you rebuild your surface, let's make the U and V divisions 4 each. So you can use a 3-degree curve. You really don't need anything more than that. And what that allows you to do is, when you turn on your points, you can actually pull those points and it would have a very, very smooth surface manipulation, or like transition. The pull sort of like is very, very smooth and gradual across the entire surface, so that looks very neat and curvy. And if you say duplicated that plane again and rebuild it with a 1 degree, the results you're gonna have would be very different, in that you have a more polygonal control of your surface. So that's the difference between a 1-degree curve and a 3-degree curve. So we also spoke about solids and control points for solids. So if we created a box, click and drag, drop, click and drag, and drop. You could also actually just turn on control points for these, but to do that you're not going to be using the same control points. You're going to be using a cage edit. So type a cage edit and press enter, and we're going to use the bounding box to edit the box. So just select the bounding box and let's select the world coordinate system. And with the cage edit, actually if you're gonna reduce your point count below 4, it would not allow you to use a 3 degree. You're gonna be using a 1 degree. So for 4 by 4 by 4 point count is kind of like the lowest you can go if you're gonna use a 3 degree curvature. So I'm just gonna press enter, and I'm gonna edit this locally. So with the local edits, you sort of just notice the point on the box, and you can pull off the points from the box. If we did a global edit, so a cage edit, a bounding box, a world, that, and a global edit, okay. Anyways, that's for solids. So we spoke about the workflow of solids to surfaces and surfaces back to solids. So if I wanted to make this solid into surfaces, I can easily explode that, and it would give me 6 surfaces, because that's what my box is made of. And now I can select each of those surfaces and pull them apart. And once I do that, I no longer have a geometry as in a box that is a solid. However, if I wanted to make that back into a solid for any reason, I could easily just move those faces back using a base point. So I'm just gonna move, oh sorry, okay, so I'm gonna move the face, and I'm gonna put that there, and move this, and put that there. So just watch the command panel. That would sort of show you what command I am typing in. I'm gonna move that also, so just type move and move that there, and then I'm gonna join the surfaces. Okay, I'm gonna select them one after the other just so that I don't select the control points with it. Okay, I'm gonna join that, and you notice it says creating meshes, and now that's a solid again. So that's a workflow from surfaces to solids and back. So the next thing, one of the other things we spoke about was the Boolean function. So if we had a few geometries, we could sort of Boolean between them. So if I move that there and I use the Boolean difference, so a Boolean difference subtracts object B from object A, and that happens because when I do a Boolean difference, I select the first object, which would be the object I want to subtract from, and then I select the second object, which says select surfaces or poly surfaces to subtract with. So that's the object that I want to subtract with, and then it's A minus B. It's the first object minus the second object. That's a Boolean difference. A Boolean split does the same thing, except it leaves the chunk that has been cut, so it doesn't delete it. So I select the first object, and sorry, okay, let's do that again. Boolean split, select the first object and select the second object, and there you go. So the second object is the cutter and it remains intact, but the first object has that cut shape. So that's what a Boolean split does. And yeah, you can also just like split the second object using the guts. So let's say Boolean difference, select the second object that you'd used initially to split the first one, press enter and select the guts, and then press enter, and now you have that. Okay, a Boolean intersection, quite similar to the Boolean split also, except this just leaves whatever intersection occurs between A and B. So if I select A, object A, press enter and select B, so that's the intersection. It's quite explanatory. So Boolean union allows you to join two objects together until they become one. Okay, we spoke about turning surfaces into solids. So if I created a truncated cone, and with the truncated cone, if I extracted the cap, so just use the extract surface command, and I'm not going to create a copy of that because I want to delete that, so I just click that and press enter and delete. I can actually offset the surface, so type offset surface and select that and press enter, and now that the arrows you're seeing at the direction, it's like the normal of the surface, and that's the direction to which it's going to offset. So I'm going to flip that so that it offsets inside. I'm just going to do that by clicking flip all. And I'm going to set a distance. I'm going to say 3 millimeters, and I'm just going to type 3 and press enter. Well, that's too big. Let's say flip all, let's say 1 mil, and press enter. So that's what 1 mil looks like. Okay, the next thing I believe we spoke about was lofting and sweeping. So let's drag that out of the bounding box, and let's create a wireframe around this. So just click your surfaces and oh, sorry, no, here, and let's create a wireframe. Extract wireframe. Select the object and press enter, and now you have your wireframe. So I'm going to delete the subdivision lines. Okay, so now I can loft between these curves. And the way the loft works is you have to select the lines in the order at which you want them to loft. So that's going to be my first line, that's going to be my second line, and that's going to be my third line. And then I'm going to say loft. And you see what happens. So now your loft also offers you some degree of control, so you can. So now that's a pretty simple loft. It's a very clean one because the curves you're using to loft, they don't have so many control points, so it gives you a really smooth surface. If however you wanted to somehow retain the rigidity of that loft so that you get something that is almost a straight line, you can use a straight section. Let's preview that. So that gives you, something that looks more like, well, I mean, it doesn't exactly look like this, but it gives you like a straight section, a straight loft. So you can play around with options here. You can rebuild the surface. I'm going to change that back to a normal. You can rebuild the surface. So if you used 80, for instance, that gives you a very, very smooth and heavy surface, because the smoother it gets, the heavier the file becomes, or the heavier the geometry becomes. And that's really not useful because it just makes it harder to control that surface. So let's just do not simplify, preview, and click OK. And now with that surface, you can turn on points and control points, and again just pull and push stuff. Anyway, let's move that aside. So now let's try the sweep. So there are two sweeps. There's a sweep 1 and a sweep 2, and the difference is the sweep 1 allows you to use one rail and one cross section, and the sweep 2 allows you to use 2 rails and 2 cross sections, and it's simple. So let's assume that is our cross section. Okay, now we want to sweep that cross section using this rail, so that means that cross section is going to go, it's sort of going to extrude along that rail. So using a sweep 1, we select the, press enter, select your rail, it asks for the rail, and then select your cross section and then press enter, and that produces a sweep. There might be some, so this is a fairly it's a single curved surface, so which means when you sweep from that curve, by the time it gets here it's the same exact profile. So but if it wasn't the same profile, then you could actually use a sweep 2. So I'm just going to push this out a little bit and show you what that would look like. Okay, so let's try the sweep 1 again. So select your rail and then select your cross section and press OK. So you see that it's a straight section. It's just a straight extrusion. It doesn't actually respect that second curve. But if you were to sweep and respect the second curve, you could actually just make these 2 curves your rail and then sweep that curve. So let's say sweep 2 to do that. So select the first rail, sweep 2, select the first rail, select the second rail, and then select the cross section, and now it sweeps and actually creates the surface respecting or taking into consideration the first rail and the second rail curves. Okay, so some of you asked questions about sort of like if you have a floor plan and you wanted to make that into a 3D model, how would you do that? So you could, so let's say, that's your first wall, and this is your second wall. I'm just going to trim that. frame, press enter. Okay, and let's join that. And now when you have a curve like this, as long as it's planar, meaning that it's flat on the plane you're working on, you can just convert that into a surface by typing planar surface, P-O-A-N-A-R surface, and that just makes a surface for you. Okay, so let's just drag that out. Now you can extrude that surface, just extrude surface, and select that. And then, so now when you're extruding the surface, if you're making a wall, you want it to be a solid, so just come here and mess around with the options and just say solid. And if your wall for any reason wasn't actually straight, you can set the direction. So for instance, just go direction, select the base point, say go to your front view, and say okay, it's not going straight, it's just slightly bent. So if you went back to perspective, like your wall would extrude at that angle. But well, I want this to be straight, so I'm just gonna go back to direction and just make it straight. And go to perspective. Okay, so let's say the height of my wall is 3000 millimeters. I'm just gonna type that and press enter. Ah, that's really huge. It's, well, I've not been working with scale, but let's just assume my wall is that tall. Anyways, yeah, that's how you draw your wall. And then you could like actually punch out windows just by there's like so many ways to do this, but this is like a dumb and easy way. Just drag that, pull it up. Again, use your Boolean difference. So Boolean difference, that, and there you go. You've got like a hole punched into that for a window. So okay, so the other thing is, how do you convert all of this into a 2D drawing? And for instance, if you had a wall, how do you cut a section through that wall? I think a wall would not be such a good thing to use for a section. Let's use this guy. Okay, so you can say you can cut a section through this. Another thing that I did not show in class is you can actually, in a sense, cut a 3D. You cannot make any drawings from this method, but you can clip your objects in 3D and see what the section looks like. So if I typed clip in plane and I just draw that. Now if I selected that and dragged that over here and I rotated it, so that just allows me to sort of like, you know, diagrammatically, or like just viewing in your 3D part what like a section looks like. Now you can, let's see, I'm not sure if you can make a 2D with that, but you can select your clip in plane and go to its properties and determine what views that it affects. So let's turn it on for right and front. So let's see. So that's your front view, and let's try and make 2D of that. Let's see if it actually does make 2D. Click OK, go to top view. Okay, yeah, so it does actually make 2D of your clip in plane, or of your clip view. Yeah, so that's good. So yeah, that's one way to just cut a section. Just like use the clip in plane and select the object and make 2D. The other way is to, the clipping plane just allows you to see what you're cutting a section through. The other way is to so go to your top view and select that object and type section and just draw a line where you want to cut the section and then press enter and you have a section. Of that object on that line. Okay, so the other thing we touched on was the make 2D command, and the make 2D command allows you to convert a 3D object into a 2D line work that you can then make diagrams with. So I'm just gonna go back here and let's see what we do. I'm gonna select all the curves because I just want to move that away. So that was the 2D we made, 2D line work we made. And again with this, just like the simple diagramming technique that I showed, you want to have a boundary around the object. So if we actually open Illustrator, so you want to have a boundary around the object, and when you make 2D, it automatically places the lines in specific layers. So this is a make 2D visible line, and that's a make, so you'd see that here, and your layers in the bottom tab. And then this one is a make 2D hidden lines, and again that's here. And I think I just put this one in like, yeah, boundary. I made a layer and put in boundary. So again, to make 2D, let's change that view to a southwest set view, isometric, southwest, and that's the object we're making 2D of. So let's make 2D. So when you're making 2D, you want to show the hidden lines, and then go to top. For some reason my view is skewed, but anyways, so that's basically what you get. And then you just take this and clean it up, you know, like duplicate that first, and then just clean that up by trimming all the lines inside to get like your boundary lines. So that kind of thing, just do that and like you get your boundary lines. And what that allows you to do is when you take that workflow from Rhino and you export these to Illustrator, it allows you create oh, that's taking a long time. Okay, well, we'll get back to that. In the meantime, I'm gonna show you how to how to prep a file for laser cutting. So the command that we used was called the contour, and a contour just divides your objects in vertical layers. So type the contour, press enter, select a base point, and then go to your front view and just drag that line, make sure it's a straight line, and click. And then it would ask you to set the distance between each contour. So again, if you are laser cutting with a 3mm plywood, you just want to type 3mm and press enter, and it creates a line walk with 3mm spacing. And so right now you've got all of that stuff stacked on each other, and it's gonna be such a big waste of time to like try and select these one after the other. Okay, so first of all, let's join them. So to select that one after the other and just, you know, like try to separate them and align them, because then again, if you're laser cutting, it all has to be on the same plane, right? Like you cannot have that height difference. It all has to be like on plane 0, you know, like, so to do that it's just gonna take a lot of time. So yeah, again, just select that, type share, like you did with the contour. Select the base point, go to front view, draw a line up, and just drag that. And let's go to top view and see what that looks like when you drag. So it basically just okay. Yeah. So let's go to top view. So it basically separates the file, the line walk like that. The other thing I think I may have missed out is that when you actually use the share, it separates a line walk, but it doesn't put it on the same plane. So again, an easy fix for that, just make 2D, and now all of them are flat. So if you go to perspective, so you see that all of these are flat and the original one isn't flat. So now you can begin to sort of rearrange these, you know, into your like laser bed size or shape. So, and that's good for exporting and laser cutting and so on and so forth. I think we also touched on a simple dumb command called drape. So if you went there and just use that command, go to top and just draw a box around that, and go to perspective, and it just allows you sort of like, it's like putting a cloth on a table, like you can just drape over an object. Okay, let's see if Illustrator is open now. Okay, good. Okay, open. So that's what our diagram would look like when you bring it in. Well, I mean, it wouldn't look like that when you bring it in, but that's what the end result should look like. And so simply to do that, simply just again export. So let's export the line work from Illustrator. So go to top view. I'm just gonna export that. Actually, I've got a hatch here, so just to make sure, like if you were gonna color anywhere, so if I was gonna color this part, I'm just gonna drag that and make a duplicate of it, and just trim out that part. So yeah, let's just say I wanted that to be a color field. Gonna join that, and then I'm gonna hatch it, and I'm gonna click OK. And so I'm just gonna export all of this. And the thing to note with exporting hatches is that when you actually have a hatch pattern, you want to export with a scale. So type export, go to Pocket Video. And I'm going to change that to Adobe Illustrator. And I'm going to save. And it brings out the options for scaling. And I'm just going to leave the scale as 1 mil equals to 1 mil. And I'm going to change that to a CMYK because I want to create my diagram with a CMYK color mode. In a CMYK color mode. And I'm going to click OK. And so if I went to Illustrator and I opened that diagram, E2, so let's, okay, so here, so again, my objects are not centered on the sheet because back in Rhino, my object is actually far away from the model base point. So to fix that, just drag your object here and then export. Okay. So let's go to layers. Let's select that. And I'm just going to change for visibility. For now, let's just make that some color so that we can, yeah, good. Okay, so I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to scale it down a little. So let's move the fill object away for now. So I'm going to select my hidden lines, so those ones. And what I'm going to do with the hidden lines is, first of all, I'm going to go to color and make sure that my hidden lines are good. My hidden lines are like 60% black or like gray. So let's say 60. And then I'm going to set the thickness to 0.2, and then I'm going to set I'm going to make it a dashed line. I'm going to make that 0.3 with a spacing of 1. And I'm going to make sure it's got a round cap and a round joint. And that makes it just faint, and like a broken line means it's hidden, like it's behind what you're actually looking at. So now for the rest of my lines, I'm gonna make those are like the make 2D visible lines. I'm gonna select those and just make them 0.2 and make them black. Okay, good. And then for my boundary lines, I'm gonna make them 1 in thickness, again, and rounded ends and rounded joints. And I'm just gonna bring that and place that on top of my, yeah, on top of that object. So that's starting to like come to life. And they don't have to be these settings. You can like totally do, you know, you can like do whatever works for you. Let's assign a color field to this. So let's just make those okay, and I'm gonna go to transparency and set the blend mode to multiply. So that way you don't have to actually, so if you, okay, so here let's put that there first of all, and let's put this here. So now if you brought that layer above the other layers, because it should be above, because it's sort of like in front. Now if you wanted to make the lines, the hidden lines, still visible, and of course your boundary lines and all of that still visible, you could make it transparent. Just reduce the opacity to say 40%, or whatever you reduce it to. But then what that does is you have that little condition there where like there's actually an opacity, there's actually a color fill over your black. But if you change the blend mode to multiply, it basically, anywhere there is a line, the color doesn't appear. So the color sort of gets absorbed by the line, and the line just shows. So that's, I find, a better way to sort of apply color. And that's a simple diagramming technique you can use. So I hope this helps.